Welcome to Winning Inside, the show where we follow the journey from feeling defeated to winning. Here are your hosts, Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman.
Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Winning Inside podcast, where we discuss real issues, insights, and solutions to help you thrive in your day-to-day lives. We know life happens, and we can choose to be a spectator or a participant.
These conversations and stories are about the participants, the ones who made the choice to do the inner work and found a way to keep moving forward.
Hey, Cheddy.
Michelle, how are you today?
I can't help but laugh every single time I say hi to you at the beginning of this.
No, like we weren't just talking before we started recording.
For an hour. It's fine. It's
I love
fine.
it.
Yeah. And part of these conversations, I mean, the reason why we started this is because we have these conversations all the time. And there are often these little nuggets where like, man, that'd be great to share. And so hence we started the podcast. But we get into these conversations and we start sharing before we start recording. And that happened today.
Don't say we. You started sharing without recording. And all I could think of was, I don't want to interrupt, but I want to hit record. And I was like, but I'm going to miss all the stuff you just said. So I waited until the very end. So yes, you dropped some serious bombs today, some serious nuggets. And I was just like, wow, we should have recorded that. So maybe we're just going to record from the beginning and delete everything beyond that, because you dropped gold today.
Well,
gold.
Hold on. This all began because you have been talking about completing this challenge.
Yes.
And when you first mentioned it, I sort of just let it go, right? I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting and something I would never want to do. So I knew you had been thinking about this, but I didn't know it was going to come to fruition like immediately. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about where this originated from, what the challenge is, and take it from there.
It's funny you say that when a few weeks ago, you just finished a 60-day challenge where you were grinding and doing intense physical workout on a limited diet. And by the way, that was preceded by you doing another 60-day challenge prior to that. So you did this back to back. So that's cute that you're talking about what I did, but you did hard things times two. And the second time you knew exactly what you were getting into. That's high level, board certified crazy, Michelle. But yeah. Please, I want to hear your retort to that one. Go ahead.
Something that we mentioned about that was that I had a group of people that I was working with on this challenge. So we were all working towards our own individual goals, but this is something that you did on your own. And that's a whole new level to me. And I have so much respect for it. And yes, it maybe is in a bit of a shorter time frame, but it's pretty intense what you did.
I'd agree. But I don't think either one's tougher than the other. I think one was sustained over a long period of time, 2 months. Mine was sustained over 48 hours. So yeah, hard is hard, I think. And you just kind of choose the kind of pain you want to deal out and receive. So what I did this weekend was the 4x4x48 challenge, which is in essence 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. And so I started on Friday afternoon in the midst of a heat wave. So the first leg, it was 99 degrees. The second leg, it was 101 degrees. And then it was 93 degrees, which felt absolutely cool. So those are my first 3 legs of this challenge. So beyond that, it was very painful and difficult. I was already depleted by that point, and it was rough. The next 9 legs were painful. But, you do these things for a reason, and you focus on the why you start. And you use that to carry you through until leg 12 when you're coming back and you're like, I did it. Holy smokes, I did that thing. So yeah, it's really my desire to do this challenge. And this is a challenge that I actually saw somebody who I actually want to get on this podcast to. It's an influencer who was talking about them doing it. And when they did it, they seemed like they were so motivated and so inspired. I was like, game on, I want to do that. That's great. Because it gets you into a place where you have to dig really deep. It starts out physical, but it becomes very emotional, psychological, mental, very quickly. And that was the space that I wanted to go into, to get in there and do that really deep work. Can I still do it? Can I do hard things? Can I start something and finish it? Can I do it without any external support and no other encouragement? Can I do this on my own? I needed to know that. So for me, it hit a lot of goals, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Well, not right now. My muscles are sore. Maybe in a while, but I'd like to do this at least 2 times a year because it really does help you get into a mental space that gives you great clarity. And that's what I got out of it, Michelle. And you can probably talk to the mental clarity based on what you did for the 60 days sustained abuse for 60 days straight.
No, I mean, to be honest, it's unique unto itself, and it is involved with the gym. And I know I spoke to it last time. There was some elements of clarity that came out of it. And some of that is just understanding where my boundaries and where my limitations truly are and being able to honor and respect that in a healthy way. But when I look at what you did, again, it's not in comparison whatsoever. I just want to talk about it because it's so hyper recent. It literally just happened and you decided to execute it. I know you've been thinking about it, but then you were just like, yep, I'm going to do it. I have 48 hours. I'm going to do it. Right. And you just turn around and did it. And the beauty behind that is that you can take all of this time to prep for things, or you can just decide to do it and jump in, knowing that there is it within reason that you can complete this. Right. You weren't like, I went from never walking, like not doing any activities to doing this challenge. And you can still do that, but likely on the other end of it, you may be experiencing some more serious physical difficulties on the other end. But you had been walking really consistently. So there was an element where you're like, I feel pretty confident that I can execute this, but this is a significant push. Right. Yes. And rather than just keep pushing it out and say, well, I'll do it next week, I'll do it the week after. It's like, you know what? I have 2 days. I have 48 hours. I mean, it did cross over into a third day. I have 48 hours. I'm just going to do it. And I love that because it was just that I know I can do it. I'm going to do it. And you did it. Yeah. You didn't find the excuses to push it off.
No. As Luke Vite would say, don't find an excuse, find a way. And really, it was the mindset of screw it and do it. We talked about that before, that whole screw it and do it thing. That was the mindset. Like, I got the time. Let's start the show. And what I had done before, Michelle, I don't think you're aware of this, but I had been walking and I'd been doing 4-mile courses, trying to find a 4-mile course that was safe for nighttime, that didn't have too many hills, because I do hills that kind of would have been abusive. I'd have been crawling up these hills by like leg 4. But I wanted something that was relatively lower hills than I usually do. And also something that would be safe at night. I didn't want to get attacked by coyotes, crazy people, drunk drivers. So I had to think about all these things, mostly for the 2 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, the 10 o'clock walks where it's dark, so that I would be safe. I had to make sure my safety was okay. And that I had a course that was clean, that I knew was 4 miles clean. So I found a course that was 4.1 miles like last week. I did it again to make sure that it really was that distance. So once I had the distance, it was like, well, I have no excuse now. I've got a course that's exactly just over 4 miles, like game on. And so with that determination, I realized you've got to do it. You said you were going to do it. So stop talking about it and be about it. So I just did it. And I was going to start at 6 o'clock in the evening. And that morning I had a meeting that got canceled. And I was like, oh, well, put on my leggings and my socks and my stuff. And was like, let's start the show. Let's start it early. So I mapped it out. And one thing I did to make it more than just walking, I had a different theme for every hour. I had 12 different themes for walking. What happened as you're thinking and reflecting on the walk in these legs, the themes changed. So I'll tell you what the themes were. I had first leg through 12. It was gratitude, fear again, or no fear, then no guilt. Then it was forgiveness. I did forgiveness again. Then I did growth, love, focus, victory, ease, and then acceptance. So those were the themes and the things that I thought about while I was walking, just to really solidify those thoughts and those words and what they mean to me and in my life and how I can express them to others and myself on that walk. So I really got a lot out of it. It was very mindful. It was a very conscious walk. It was painful, but just going through it was painful. And I didn't like that part at all. I mean, every muscle hurt. I mean, my hands were cramping, yet the growth from it, the insight received by doing it made it worth it. It seemed like something that I needed to do. It was almost like intensive care for my mind. And I'm glad that I did it. And I'm glad I did it by myself, just to remind myself, Ched, you can do these things. Sometimes you got to remind yourself that you are a rock star. You know what I mean, Michelle?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
No, absolutely. I think, as we were talking earlier, we came up with this idea of mental insights from physical challenges. And part of this was that, Cheddy was like, well, I want to talk about it was self-care. And I pushed back on him and I said, I have a really hard time buying that the intention of this was self-care. And, we had a bit of banter back and forth as to why it's self-care and why it's not self-care at the same time. And I said, well, was that your original intent? Was the original intent self-care? And he's like, no. Then I said, that's not self-care. But the best part about this is that the end result, what comes out at the other end of it, can be the same thing as self-care. So that was part of the beauty of what you experienced and what you're sharing with us right now, with all of those focuses that you created prior to executing and starting this 4x4. You created an intention to gain clarity, provide space for your brain, for your thoughts. Going into this exercise, going into this challenge, you had intention behind it to give your brain some space. So there was an element of self-care, but it was packaged in this quote unquote challenge, right? In this physical challenge.
Yes.
But I really liked what you just said in terms of intensive care for your brain or for your mind.
Yeah.
And we talk about this. It's so common. You and I have mentioned it already. A lot of people talk just about the overabundance of information and misinformation and things that keep your brain on hyperdrive. All of the media, not just social media, but just all kind of, stimuli that comes at you on a nonstop basis, radio, podcasting, even, social media. We're on Zoom all the time. You have TV, like whatever it is that we have access to. And at the same time, a lot of us are parents or, we're in families. We have our friends. We have our work. We have our gym. We have all these things that are going on. And you gave yourself 48 hours of space, and that is intensive care. And it was 48 hours of really intentional time to focus on what's important to you and not to give your brain specific direction of, I'm just going to focus on this mantra. And there's nothing wrong with mantras, but to allow it to almost wander and flow as you walked so that what came from this focus of, forgiveness. And I think focus was also one of your topics.
Yep.
Whatever the topic was, you allowed your brain to go where it needed to go to one, exercise and get out some of the stuff that just gets layered upon over time. And then also to create space to have new things come up that you couldn't even see because we're so burdened and with all of the stimuli that comes at us.
Right. Yeah. It's true. I would tell you social media and just the news and life stuff was getting a little heavy. It's just been getting heavy. And I don't want to go into what those things were. There's no need to remind people of what's going on. But whether it's entertainment, whether it was politics, no matter what it was, the economy, life in general, it was just getting a little heavy. And there was this layer of negativity that was just weighing me down personally that I didn't need in addition to life and the stuff that life inherently brings. It was becoming a weight. And not only that, it was affecting my performance. What was starting to happen was Michelle, you probably could probably noticed it, is my mind was becoming scattered. I was becoming less focused and more diffuse, but not in a good way at all. Just nothing gets done because I was trying to do everything at the same time. So there was no attention, no focus, no direction. And then you become more and more inefficient. And I couldn't function in that space. I wasn't being my highest and best self at all. So I needed something to kind of jumpstart me, give me that shock therapy, very similar to, as you know, Michelle, ice bath therapy, that ice bath treatment. It was something that just kind of, I needed something to shock the system so I could get into a space again, a real deep mental space where I could kind of get back on track. And I needed to do that. And you know all about this work. So, I mean, explain when I said ice bath, please explain what that means to people so they understand what that kind of a shock does to the human body and mind.
Yeah. So how this came up was the conversation again, that this was self-care, right? Because what happened at the end was clarity. Like he felt calm. He felt focused. Yes, he was tired, but it was a physical tired. It was a physical exhaustion. It wasn't a mental exhaustion, because it was as if those scales, tipped the other way. Before, he was mentally exhausted because his brain was over functioning, and physically he felt fine, right? But he was mentally exhausted. But when you're mentally exhausted, your body sort of just follows suit naturally. Then he sort of tipped the scale where he did this physical challenge, but it created almost mental focus and energy at the same time. And I said, well, that's kind of like ice bath. That's like taking an ice bath or an ice shower, like a cold shower. If at the end of your shower, you turn your water all the way to cold and sit under your water for a minute, what happens? Right? Yeah. So what happens is you start to hyperventilate a little bit because your body's is shocked by that change in temperature. And when you experience that level of shock, your sympathetic nervous system activates, right? So your body is just flooded with adrenaline. It's like, oh my God, like really flight is what comes up, like get out of the cold water, save yourself, right? You got to save your body. And so your body is just reacting, but you're holding steady under this cold water, or you're essentially immersing yourself in an ice bath or a frozen lake or whatever you see, people when they practice this kind of work or exercise. And it's a physical challenge that is very mental. So you're holding yourself there. You are forcing your body to engage in a breathing exercise to calm your nervous system. But also what happens is when your sympathetic nervous system comes into play and it's flooding your body, and you're essentially mentally telling your body, it's okay, I'm fine. You're activating also, and the hormones in your body are activating the parasympathetic nervous system to do the basically the counter hormones to relax your body. Your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest. So it's trying to get rid of all of those, hormones that are like keeping your body and your heart rate racing and your breath short. It's trying to get rid of all of that. So what happens at the end of your cold shower, what happens when you get out of an ice bath is you feel energized, mentally sharp, and physically relaxed at the same time. It's an incredible feeling.
Yes.
So I did it for 30 days, the cold shower challenge or whatever. Like people do the 75 hard. I think you're supposed to do be in the cold shower for 5 minutes a day for 75 days straight, along with all these other crazy, intense challenges. I haven't gotten to that one yet. That's
I'm with you.
That's intense. But I did do 30 days. And, even just 1 minute, 2 minutes in the cold shower, it truly is teaching you, I can do these hard things.
Yes.
And you'll survive.
Right. That was the key. That was the key part. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean keep going. No.
I was literally just going to pass it right off to you.
Wow. That is the key part, is that you realize that at the end of it, I was singing I'm Still Standing, Elton John, because that was how I felt. Like, I'm still here. I just did, in fact, in essence, I did over 50 miles, really, but I did 48 official miles. And I was like, I'm still standing, still here. It didn't beat me, didn't break me. And it was awesome because all I could think of was David Goggins' story. He's the one that inspired this. So props to you, David Goggins. I appreciate it. I didn't do it when you did it, but I did it. So, and I appreciate it because you can do hard things. You can persevere. You can go beyond that limit where you want to quit. Believe me, I wanted to quit a few times. And it just going beyond that point where you realize you still have something in you. You just have to find it and dig a little deeper. It teaches you something, because now I know when I'm going through adversity, I have more in the tank. Just because and from the point that I say I want to quit, I have quite a bit more. I have a little bit more in there that I can go to. And now I know how to source it because I just did it. So I have social proof that it can be done. Now, when I tell others that you can do it, not only am I saying it because I know it can be done, I know it because I did it. And I am no different than anybody else. Therefore, if I can do it, I know you guys can do it, whatever that is. So it gives you a certain level of confidence. But the clarity it gave me at the end of that, the calmness, and it's got to be because of the shock. I mean, the amount of sweating, the heart rate being so high, the adrenaline at certain points. There were points, I'll tell you, there was one leg I was doing at 2:00 in the morning where I was delirious. I remember I was like, Cheddy, you're not walking in a straight line. I was like, holy smokes, dude, don't go into the road. Like, if you're going to stumble towards the sidewalk and not, to like the non-road side of the sidewalk, because I couldn't walk in a straight line. That's how fatigued I was. But I was like, keep going. And I had water because you're not dehydrated because you have water and you're drinking water. So just keep going. You know what to do. You know the way. Just follow the sidewalk. It will take you back. And I would say for about 2.5 miles, I was total delirium. I don't know how I did it, but you realize that you can dig even deeper in that state. And you just start to realize the power of the mind and the power of the body. And when you put those two things together in alignment to do something, you can do great and amazing things. And this was physical. It was just walking, but you can apply this to anything in your life, any hard thing you have to do. Once you have social proof that you can do it in one area of your life, what's to say you can't do it in another? That was profound growth for me. And that was something that I needed. And there's a level of confidence that I have now that I didn't have or had probably lost or neglected or forgot about, 50 hours ago, 72 hours ago, a week ago. I needed that. So maybe I didn't do it for self-care. Maybe I did it for a jump start, almost like a shock therapy of sorts, something that like a hard thing. But there is definitely a compassionate component to it. There is definitely a self-care at the end of that. Because at the end of it, I was like, Cheddy, I'm proud of you, Ched. You did that thing. And that was very nice. I actually felt very appreciative that I was telling myself that I did a good thing. And I know, if you know me, Cheddy speaks to Ched, and I do that sometimes. I have that little inner dialogue. But it was nice for myself to congratulate myself. I know I sound like Austin Powers when I said that, but it really was. It was an important thing. And I needed that at that time. And that's why I did it. That's why I didn't do it for anybody else, because this is work I needed to do for me. And I had some Marines who were like, hey, let's do it. Let's get it together. Let's get the band together and we'll do it in different parts of the country. And when I did it, they were like, dude, you're doing it. I needed to do this for myself. I did. And I would love to do it again with all my warriors, but this was for me. And I needed this at this time. So, yeah. And it's just one of those things, Michelle, you know more than most the power of doing hard things. You are one of those people that will challenge yourself and will push yourself to just high levels of performance, really. And you do it like it's normal. Like you say stuff, you're like, yeah, I just did this challenge. I just did this. And I'm like, that's not normal, Michelle. But you just have this mental clarity, this laser focus that enables you to do some things that you think are normal because you've done it. Yet I'm like, jaw on the floor, like, Michelle, you just did that. That's not something that everybody does. And you think, oh, well, what do you mean? I did it. So it's no big deal. Because you have put yourself in that mindset. You are so strong mentally that you're able to do these phenomenal things physically. So props to you too, because we're talking about my challenge, but I'm not negating the fact that you were doing a challenge while I was eating candy. You were on, triple digit calorie intakes for the day. I was like, whoa, what are you doing? So yeah, hats off to you, man.
I was in the 4 digits.
Yeah, the very low 4 digits, like 1,001 calories.
Yeah. In the last week, that's debatable, but yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I do not advocate for that. I'm just saying that is not a standard circumstance ever for me, ever. So that was just the last few days, but that's neither here nor there. What I wanted to highlight from what you just shared was that while we're talking about physical challenges and the mental benefits that you can reap from a multitude of options when it comes to physical challenges. One, you have got to give yourself some space to really reflect on that. So there's practices like journaling, meditating, and walking meditation is powerful, which is essentially what you were doing for 48 hours straight, was hour-long walking meditations, which is amazing and powerful. So giving yourself space to reflect on the sensations, the physical sensations that you're experiencing, the thoughts that come up, including the limiting thoughts that come up that try to stop you, right? Because you're trying to protect yourself. You're like, no, you're really challenging yourself physically. Let's pull back. Let's keep it safe. You were able to keep yourself alive for this many years. Like, why do we want to challenge ourselves now, right? Like your brain's like, no, stop.
Yes.
But you have to give yourself space to reflect on that.
Yeah.
The other element to this is that, as Cheddy mentioned, is that this applies to mental challenges too, in terms of, things that we perceive as difficult, whether it's with work, a difficult conversation we know we want to undertake with a family member, things that we really push off because of the discomfort that arises when we are faced with this opportunity to own that conversation or take on this new project at work, or maybe it's even, starting a new job. So these mental challenged moments where we're like afraid, there's fear, this limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs start to show up in our lives. This is when those physical challenges and the insights that we gain from that, they really apply to this, right?
Yes.
So when you realize that you can survive, like physically survive, when you are faced with these mental challenges, it is the same physical reaction in your body. You start breathing shallower, maybe more rapidly, your heart's racing, your cheeks may be flushed. Like those same physical sensations are the telltale signs that your body is having that reaction, right? Your sympathetic nervous system is coming online and saying, don't do that. Don't take any risks. Stay safe.
Yes.
And how this parlays to that is, one, to what Cheddy said, you have this evidence that you can survive hard things, right? Your body has evidence that like, oh, my sympathetic nervous system is online. Like, how do I activate that parasympathetic nervous system? So there's ways, like you hear this all the time, this word biohack. That's like, it's a funny phrase, right?
Yeah. Funny phrase.
But biohack. I mean, yeah.
Get it.
So, but what you're really doing is you want to trigger your body to activate the parasympathetic nervous system to get to that point of being able to have that focus, the mental focus, and relaxing your body. So different ways that you can do that is breath work, actually humming. They say gargling water. I know that sounds crazy.
I didn't know that one. Okay, I like that. You take notes on that one.
One of the reasons is because your vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in your sympathetic nervous system, it runs through your neck, right? And so when you're humming, when you're gargling, you're essentially creating this vibration in your throat, which activates your vagus nerve, which then brings your parasympathetic nervous system online. And what is that again? It's your rest and digest.
Wow.
So when you want to activate that, go to your car, go in the bathroom and start humming, different activities like that. When you hear monks chanting, the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you're activating that vagus nerve. You're bringing that parasympathetic nervous system online. There's ways to like manually manipulate it too, but different activities like that really help to get your body into a state where it begins to relax again. And so when you're going up to give a presentation and you're just like, oh my God, some people thrive on that. Like Cheddy, I know you love those butterflies. And the nerves
I love that feeling.
Yes.
Just before you go on the mic. Woo.
Yes. I cannot stand it. I'm like, my voice is definitely shaking. I sound terrible. All of those thoughts come up. So I really need to get my brain to a space of relaxation. So all
Yes.
of those techniques to really activate my parasympathetic nervous system and try to get to that state of mental focus, but physical relaxation is critical component for me. So when we say, hey, physical challenges create mental insights, yes. And when you have mental challenges, you can actually tap into your physical body
Yes.
to create that relaxed state as you go into these challenges, these things that challenge you mentally.
Yes. That's funny because the word biohack seems like it makes sense. When you say it like that, that word actually fits. So I know I was chuckling a few minutes ago, but now I'm like, yeah, biohack.
It does. And we hear it a lot. And so that's why I laugh. Yeah.
But when you explain it, you're like, that makes sense. It jumpstarts you and gets you right to the meat, right to the crux of the issue, right where you need to be to get certain things done. It just saves you some time. It's a smart thing to do. And if you can manage it and know how to use it, you can use it to your benefit. It's very similar to when I used to run track and field, and I had a coach who was an Olympic athlete and was like, hey, I'm going to show you how to basically jumpstart your adrenals to get some adrenaline in your system before you sprint or before you do an event. And he would show me certain things to do to kind of get your adrenal glands to secrete a little bit, which was almost like putting nitrous oxide in your car. It was just giving you that extra boost. And there's nothing wrong with it. It was just great. And when you learn how to physically do things that can affect you in other ways, what a great way to improve performance. I mean, it's just good to know yourself and be self-aware enough to know there are things you can do to change the outcome of your day or the result that you want to get. And I've known it in certain spaces, but I'm learning it every day in my mental space, in that part of me that wants me to do better, be more, have more, and do more. That part of me is still working on it. It's still learning how to hone that skill. So yeah, Michelle. So it's been a good weekend for me. Absolutely great. And now I know how you felt post 60-day challenge. I understand that sense of accomplishment you had. I know why everyone celebrated so big at the end of it. I can see the big smiles because there's so many breakthroughs that happen. And all of the people that you did that with, all the people that you led on your team, all know now they can do hard things. And I guarantee their confidence is higher and the things they can do. And I hate to speak on things that you know more about than I, but I guarantee they're better on this side of it than they were on the other side.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say, whether it's a physical challenge, whatever it is, please, even if you don't like taking photos of yourself, take photos of yourself before and after. And the reason is because there is a telltale difference. There truly is. And even Cheddy, I know you were taking selfies throughout.
No. I know, it was weird too. People were like, why is this weirdo taking pictures of himself as he's walking? I could see them in their cars.
It wasn't necessarily to, broadcast every single one of them on social media. That wasn't the purpose. It was for you.
It was to chronicle it.
Yeah. It was to chronicle your journey. And that's why it's so important, whether you're journaling or taking photos. I love the photos because we cannot see what we can't see. And even if we're looking in the mirror, that looks different than how other people perceive us.
Yes.
So when I'm on the other side of these challenges and people say, oh, you look great, oftentimes it's not because, physically the way my body looks. It's because my expression, my engagement, all of that is different. Right.
Yeah.
And I can't actually really see that, but sometimes I actually see it in photos.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's good reinforcement.
Yeah. It shows the things that you can't see in the mirror and what you will refuse to see because you look at yourself through your own filters.
Yes. I think that is powerful. So, I mean, this is good work to do. If you can find any way in your own life to just do a hard thing. Do that tough thing. Do that thing that challenges you. Get those insights that you get those gems from doing something physical to kind of hack you, to use the word biohack you into doing things that help your mind out, that help you just increase your lifestyle and your well-being. Why not do them? And they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a 4x4x48 or a 60-day challenge. It can be anything that pushes you beyond the limits that you think you can do, anything that gets you into that space where all of a sudden you feel like there's a little bit of survival mechanism kicking in. There's a little bit of panic and fear and pain and like, why am I doing this? I want to quit. When you go beyond that space, magic things happen.
Well, Cheddy, I love that you did this. And I'm so glad that it happened right before this recording. We didn't plan on talking about this. It just so coincided. And so I'm so excited that you had that opportunity and I can't wait to see what's next.
Wait, there's more?
Yeah.
There's more?
Always.
Wait, what? We're always moving and ever
whatever
advancing?
You want to create. Exactly.
I like that. And I totally agree.
Well, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, follow, share, and most importantly, use whatever adds value to your amazing life.
Remember, even if life puts barriers in our way, we are still moving forward. Sign in each Monday for a new episode of Winning Inside.
Thank you for listening to Winning Inside with Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to click the follow button, rate and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can connect with Cheddy and Michelle at winninginside.io. Keep listening. Another episode is coming soon.